So you two just got back from Mexico. Can you tell me where exactly did you go and why did you go?
We went to Tapachula, which is on the southern border of Mexico, between Mexico and Guatemala. And we were there because we learned that there were African migrants there who had begun to protest, in which they were demanding that they be able to leave Tapachula, where they have been stranded for some of them almost 4 months now. Their only goal is just to walk, and they've been prevented from walking, but in ways that are, have been violent, have been, their liberty has been deprived, they've been imprisoned, they have been mistreated in a variety of ways, to the point that they have had enough. And they've organized themselves into an assembly, they had a press conference, they have demand letters, and they've been blocking detention center buses from coming in and doing everything they can to try to get some attention to their plight. Talk
to me about this particular community that you met with.
Historically, black people weren't even included on the census until 2015-16 in Mexico. They were just invisible to the government. These are African from the Democratic Republic of Congo, from Ghana, Ethiopia, Ghana,
Cameroon, Eritrea, Angola.
Angola.
There's 15 countries represented there.
Wow. Yeah, I think it's only supposed to be 72 hours that they can legally detain somebody, but they've been there for 4 months, because of the Trump policy, and they've made it very clear that U.S. southern border has moved from the south of the U.S. to the south of Mexico.
How is the black migrant community, how are their stories, their needs, and their circumstances different?
So they have a variety of differences. Smaller, but still very important, is a language access problem. There are 2 countries on the continent of Africa that speak Spanish. Everyone else is doing English or French, and then you have Portuguese with Angola. They're being handed forms to fill out by immigration authorities.
In Spanish?
In Spanish, that they cannot read. And they're being told, if you don't sign this, you're going to be deported. So they're signing the forms because they're understanding this is part of the process, not knowing that what they're signing, they put a wrong name right here, is setting them up to be deported or setting them up to be denied, setting them up to be declared stateless. But then the other things that are happening to them differently are based strictly on anti-blackness, their inability to access medical care. And they compared that to the treatment of non-black immigrants who get whole reports written up, who get their diets changed based upon complaints that they're making.
They give you different quantities of food.
Yes, small rice, maybe some salad, some fruits, but it's very small.
Their food, the food that's given to black migrants in detention, that they actually are giving them rotten food. It's systematic. It's been documented by those human rights groups, as well as, through the discussions and descriptions of black migrants there, that they are being treated differently.
What did you hear from the people you talked to about why they are coming to the United States, why they are fleeing their home countries?
Their society or their government turned against them, and their lives were threatened, their children's lives were threatened, and they said, if I can just make it to the U.S. border, I can seek asylum, I can protect my family. If America cares about that image that we've promoted to say that we are this place where people can come and there's equal opportunity, then we need to fight for that image. It's a human rights crisis.
So please help us our way out.
They asked us specifically, please tell the American people if they care about human life and humanity in any way, they should put the pressure on this government and the Mexican government to just let us keep walking.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.